Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory figure to take a look at, and as you can see, we have the Super Colossal Allosaurus, and this one is probably at one time, one of my most anticipated, quickly turned into one of my least anticipated Super Colossals, because I don't know what it is about Mattel and their recent string of Allosaurus figures, but they cannot seem to get this figure right. Every time they release a new version of it, it ends up looking kind of weird and kind of goofy. I think the same thing is happening here with this Super Colossal version. One thing I could say straight out of the gate that I really don't like are the teeth. The teeth, yet again, look huge on this for some reason, almost making it look like a vampire version of an Allosaurus. I don't know, just something looks really off about those teeth, but the figure as a whole, from the images I had seen, looked a little bit strange, but the only way to truly tell, of course, is to actually get the figure out and take a look at it here, in person. You can see the box art is pretty much what you would expect when it comes to the Chaos Theory line, and of course we've got a nice big open area here for the Allosaurus. You can also see a silhouette giving off the size and an image of the Allosaurus in all its glory there with someone playing with it. And then if we turn the package around, we take a look at the back, you can see the back has a nice image again of the Allosaurus, the fact that in typical Super Colossal fashion, it can swallow and store apparently up to 20 minifigures in the Mattel line. And again, just a few more images on the back, as well as a few of the minifigures down here on the bottom. Shockingly, I don't really think those are the Chaos Theory minis. I think they're just random minis that Mattel has released over the years. But I'm still super excited to check this out. Any new Mattel figure is always one that I'm excited about. So let's pop this box open and do just that. So once we have all of the pieces out, clearly the figure is not assembled or anything quite yet. I usually try to review the Super Colossals and like the large sauropods and stuff prior to assembling them. It just makes them a little easier to kind of, turn and reposition for the closer looks and stuff. So we basically have currently what it would be like if an Allosaurus exploded before we get this closer look. So it does look kind of fun outside of the teeth at this point, but again, we have to truly wait for the overall visual once we're done with that closer look. So let's go ahead and get to that closer look so we can check this thing out. So like we would usually do, we'll start here at the head sculpt, and you can see the head sculpt when it comes to the fine detail does look really nice. Like we've got some gorgeous scale detail sculpted out here on the face of the Allosaurus. It's also extremely crisp and vibrant, like it really pops on the sculpt of the figure. I think the only area where I can really see it kind of end up being a little, washed out would be right here in the eye socket area. And also when you move up here into the top of the head, you can see it's a little bit kind of smoothed over, not quite as crisp as you see elsewhere, but it's not too bad. One thing that is pretty cool is you can see a few scars here on the face of the Allosaurus, not just right here. You can also see some up here on the tip of the snout. So it would be a pretty fun figure to repaint and actually paint those either injuries or scars out, whatever you choose to, use those as. You can see the nostrils up here on the snout are also sculpted out. They almost look like they have kind of like a slight satin shine in there, which is pretty cool. We have yellow eyes and a black pupil. The eyes have a nice gloss coat as well, so that's a plus. You can see the crest, of course, for the Allosaurus up here looks really nice. And overall, again, I'm not going to go ahead and say it's definitely the most perfect version of a Jurassic World Allosaurus. I mean, it has the general look of one, but definitely still looks a bit off. Of course, we have an articulated jaw. You can see the lower jaw and upper jaws articulate, so you can get a nice wide gaping open mouth with your Allosaurus. The teeth still look super strange to me, and especially back here as you lead back, the teeth are just so ugly and huge. I just don't know what it is about these teeth. But one thing that is actually kind of cool about the teeth is when you look at the teeth and you let the light hit it, you can see there is actually some fine detail added to the teeth of the Allosaurus, and that's not something that you always see from Mattel. So just a little extra added detail that's kind of impressive, even if they are kind of ugly. But you can see the tongue painted on the inside of the mouth has a nice pinkish tone. It's also pretty decently textured, and you can see the inside of the mouth and the upper side also sports some decent detail, and again that nice pinkish tone with a nice satin shine. We have the throat back here, of course, because it can swallow, different dinosaurs. Mostly it's meant for minis, but it can definitely swallow some smaller dinosaurs and humans. And again, the figure has the fun playability aspect of being able to do that, but those teeth. I just can't get past those teeth. But you can see that we have the darker blue variation of color up here on the top of the head. You have a dark green down here. It's almost like a, I don't even know, like a greenish brown for the lower jaw. As you begin to move back here into the neck of the Allosaurus, you see, again, that kind of armored scoot-like appearance here to the top of the dinosaur. You've got the ridges moving along the back, the scoots again following along the side. And you can see how the blue kind of creeps and patterns down here into the side of the neck of the Allosaurus. And then you have that greenish brown down here. You've got all sorts of skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff down here in the neck, which is really cool. You can see the throat as well. Much finer scale detail and detailing in general as you move down into the underside of the Allosaurus in the throat region. You do have a swivel for the neck so you can articulate the neck. Looks like that's about as far as it goes. Yeah, both ways. So it can tilt, but it can't completely swivel around, or at least it doesn't seem like it can. As you continue to move along, though, you continue to see, again, that very armored sort of a look to the Allosaurus here, moving along the back with the scoots and everything, and the ridges following the spinal column. You can see a little difference in size as you continue to move through. You've got that blue continuing to kind of leak down here into the side. As you lead down here into the stomach region, you can kind of make out the rib cage, as well as, again, some more really nice scale detail moving throughout. You've got a few more skin wrinkles and stuff here. As you lead down into the arm, you've got some nice muscle definition, of course, for the arm here of the Allosaurus. Nice elbow sculpted out, and as you lead down into the hands also look pretty decent. We've got some scoots moving down the fingers there, and again, the nails are sculpted decently. They even have a little bit of detail added to them, and no paintwork, unfortunately, but they don't look half bad when it comes to the sculpt. You do, of course, have arm articulation, forward and back, and then also a swivel in the wrist, so a little extra articulation there. And then as we continue to move down, again, you're basically in the hip region here, above the thigh and everything right there, but obviously the leg hasn't been applied quite yet. You can see we're leading out here into the tail at this point, and we still have that bluish coloration running out, which is pretty cool. And the detail here on the underside also looks pretty decent. Interestingly enough, the area where you would actually open to pull the dinosaurs that it swallows out, the detail of that area looks so much nicer than the detail of the rest of the Allosaurus on the underside. Like, look at how crisp and impressive that detail is compared to what you see right here. I don't know why that is, but that's very strange. But the underside, again, looks pretty much the same as you move through. And then the opposing side of the Allosaurus is also going to look pretty much the same as what we had seen, you know, looking at the first side, except we don't have those same injuries and stuff over here. I actually don't really notice any scars or injuries on this side. I may be just overlooking one, but I don't really notice any. But again, as you move back, all pretty much the same thing going on both sides of this Allosaurus. And then you've got the legs. So here is the left leg of the Allosaurus. Again, the scale detail, the skin texture looks really nice, really crisp here in the legs. You've also got some nice muscle definition moving down, a few creases in the back of the knee. The kneecap itself sculpted out quite nicely here in the front of the leg. And then you lead down, you've got a big bulging calf muscle also nicely defined. And then you lead down here into the foot sculpt of the Allosaurus. We've got some scoots, again, moving down the toes. Pretty decent scale detail there in between the toes. The scoots are, of course, a little bit smoothed out, but the scale detail in between the toes looks really, really nice. We do have painted nails with a nice glossy black. You can see kind of like some sort of attempts at giving it some detail, but it's basically just like really generic kind of lines sculpted through the nails. And we do have dew claws, but of course they are not painted, unfortunately. And then as you move up through the inside of the leg, we can get a nice shot of that, something you don't always see because it's a little hidden sometimes by the rest of the dinosaur. But of course, you'll also have articulation forward and back in the hip region of the Allosaurus, as well as a swivel in the ankles, just like you usually do. Boy, it's really hard to swivel the opposite direction. Sometimes these things just get stuck and you just need to give them a little forceful shove, but it's always concerning when you hear that loud popping noise. And then the opposing leg, again, is going to look pretty much the same, except we've got an injury here on the thigh. This would be the right leg of the Allosaurus. You could see some slices right there through the thigh. But then as you move down through the rest of the leg, everything else looks pretty much the same as what we had just seen on the initial side. And again, no dew claw paint or anything like that. And you've, of course, also got the tail. And one thing that's interesting is it kind of gives the dinosaur almost the look of having a fully painted feel outside of the dew claws and the hand claws, because as you lead out, the blue that is on the top of the dinosaur leads through the rest of the tail. But unfortunately, the entire tail is the blue. Like, you don't have that darker greenish brown sort of color following along the underside. You only have the blue leading out. There's no speckling or anything that I'm noticing on the figure, really. Nothing that's really jumping out at me anyway. Maybe like a slight white speckling I see here and there. But sculpt and detail wise, it looks pretty nice. Again, the scale detail's quite nice here. Very rough, rugged, larger scales here. Much smaller, finer scales as you move down. We continue to have the armored look here to the top of the Allosaurus. A nice little curve to the tail as you lead out. You can see the armored area pretty much ends as you lead out here toward the tip of the tail. And you basically just have the scales right here. You've also got one little area that can swivel right here at the tip of the tail. And then, of course, this is going to be another articulated joint for the figure. The tail is kind of small compared to what I was expecting. I'm intrigued to see it on the dinosaur because I feel like it's definitely going to look way too small. Normally the Super Colossals have pretty long tails. It's like that one dinosaur that's, you know, like that one range of dinosaurs that almost always has a more proportionate sized tail, but I feel like they definitely gypped the Allosaurus when it comes to tail length this time. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this and we'll check it out from there. So there is our Allosaurus now assembled, and I will say it doesn't look quite as awkward in person as the original prototype images had shown me and had kind of led me to believe it did, but it does still look kind of awkward. Like, there are definitely a whole lot of things going on with this as far as the proportions that I don't like. The head is gigantic. It looks super huge on the figure. The body is kind of oddly skinny and almost a little scrawny. The legs seem a bit larger than they should be, and the tail is definitely shorter than it should be, but it is still pretty cool to see a massive Allosaurus like this from Mattel. Like, I love the Allosaurus from Jurassic World, but I just love Allosaurus in general, so it is neat to have an Allosaurus as massive as this is. So even with the many issues this thing seems to have, it is still pretty fun. But also I wanted to show off the articulation of the tail really quick. You can swivel it around. It doesn't really go up and down, but it can go left and right. And I know that's probably not the best angle for that, but since it wasn't really connected before when we were taking the closer look, I just kind of wanted to give you a rough idea of how the articulation works. And of course, the hip and everything is going to move forward and back like Mattel figures usually do, so not really anything that really needs to be shown off there. For the most part, if you have a Super Colossal in your collection, you're already going to know how all of the articulation works. It doesn't really look like much of anything would be different with this one. As far as a size goes, we're going to go ahead again and get a little bit closer here and see if we can move this up enough that we can get the tail in screen at least. So you can kind of see the tail, but for a length from the snout to the tip of the tail, you are looking at about 39.5 inches, or right around 100 centimeters. And then for a height, I guess we'll have to readjust the camera again. In the position it's currently in, which of course you could make it way taller depending on the positioning that you put the dinosaur in, but in this kind of natural standing position, you're looking at a little over 14 inches, or pretty much, I would say, about 36 centimeters, almost on the dot to the top of the crest of the Allosaurus. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our gigantic Super Colossal Allosaurus. And as you can see, it is really quite large, and for the most part, size comparisons aren't really a big deal when it comes to the Super Colossal figures, because they're all relatively the same size usually, and they're all gigantic in comparison to pretty much everything else outside of other Super Colossals. So I feel like we'll only really do one other size comparison, and that would be with a Super Colossal T-Rex, and I'll have to go outside to do that because there is definitely not enough room to give you a good size comparison in here. So as you can see, next to the Super Colossal Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Allosaurus is actually a little bit smaller. It's not quite the same size as what we normally would get for a Super Colossal, and I guess it makes sense for the Allosaurus to be smaller than the T-Rex, but in the past we've had, you know, like an Indoraptor that's the same size as the Carnotaurus, so they've never really been built on size difference or scale or anything like that. They're always just usually large, but I think this comparison definitely helps to show you that the Allosaurus is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, definitely in length, maybe a little bit bulkier possibly than the T-Rex, but smaller nonetheless. And you can see again from the shot here, looking at them from the front together, you can definitely still again see how the T-Rex is just a little bit longer than our Allosaurus, and the Allosaurus definitely gets the shaft in the length department compared to previous Super Colossal figures. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Super Colossal Allosaurus is definitely a mixed bag for me, but I will say I do like it more in person than I was expecting to. I honestly wanted to add it to my collection because at this point I have every other Super Colossal Mattel has released, but at the same time it wasn't one that I was super impressed by when it comes to the original promo images, and a lot kind of looked iffy about it in those promo images. Here in person it definitely looks a bit nicer, still very wonky, but definitely a little bit nicer than I was expecting it to look. The good things about it is it does have some really nice detail for the most part through the course of the body. There are definitely a few areas that are muted and don't really look that highly detailed, not quite up to Mattel standards when it comes to their fine detail, but overall I would say the figure does have a pretty decent sculpt when it comes to like the scale detail and skin texture and stuff like that. It also does have, you know, a fairly decent amount of paint apps to it. We've got the bluish tone from head to tail. I would have liked to have seen the darker kind of like greenish brown that we have on the underside lead out into the tail, even if just for a little ways. So that's a little bit of a bummer that it doesn't, especially because the transition to the blue tail I feel like isn't quite as smooth as it could be. The darker greenish brown just kind of disappears pretty much instantly. That said, when it comes to the ugly aspects of it, the proportions are definitely off quite a bit for the figure. I think, many areas of the figure look ridiculous. Like the head's huge, the tail's a bit shorter than it should be, the body's a little bit thin, the legs are a bit larger. The articulation seems to work fairly decently, which is a plus, and, it works pretty much as it usually does for Super Colossals. The teeth are super, super ugly, definitely don't like those, but like I said, kind of a mixed bag, but still a fairly fun Super Colossal figure, and definitely nice to see a large Allosaurus like this now out from Mattel. So if you are interested in picking one up for yourself, head to your local Target. That's where I had to pick mine up. They don't have it on the website yet, but in store, if you happen to head there, maybe just ask them. It may be in the back, it may already be out on the floor, who knows. But one way or another, if you are a collector of the Super Colossals, it's worth picking up, I guess. So make sure you do that, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.